And the reason for the do it all night from home, that's, all night. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I'm not listening to you.
Good morning. All right, how are you?
Just, they're there, it'll list the duration and the DDA will be listed as the duration. So someone coming there to do anything, a volunteer, we have some coverage. If it is like the middle school program, they do both. But this one is only DA.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, you good this morning?
Good morning, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
It's been a while.
It's been a
I
while.
don't see you anymore.
No, sir, running around like a chicken with my head cut off. You doing good?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Good morning. We're going to call our meeting to order this morning, and if you have your cell phone, we're going to ask you to please turn them off at this time. We will stand and have prayer by pledge of allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Blanton and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
If you would like to pray, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day that we shall all rejoice and be glad in. Thankful for this time to allow us to make decisions based on behalf of the city of Madison. Continue to lead, guide us, continue to give us wisdom, continue to give us knowledge and understanding based on the citizens in the city of Madison. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. First on our work session agenda this morning is Georgia Department of Transportation District Engineering presentation, and we'd like to thank you guys for coming this morning to talk to us briefly. So many of our citizens continue to ask questions about North and South Main Street and why the trucks still come through town and why they can't use the bypass. The speed limit, is set by the GDOT and not by the city of Madison. So, Mr. Renzo, you would want to come and sit at the stage and talk to you. Gentlemen, I'll just say that you need to be close to the mics when you speak. Okay. And we try to get our citizens to understand that it's a state highway, not a city street. It's handled by you guys. So if you would just tell us the do's and don'ts, what our city can do and what you can do, what you're responsible for doing.
So, good morning, and make sure I've got my voice close enough. Y'all, I guess I'm coming through okay. Yeah, I feel like I gotta sing if I hold the I don't like that too much.
We like to pick up these meetings any way we can.
Okay, now I think I'm coming through. All right, that would be yours. So this morning, I've got Kedrick Collins, our district traffic engineer, with us, and his assistant. Yeah, it's okay. So anyway, Brock Tyson is his assistant as well. So that's what they do every day. I'm gonna let them answer most of your questions. I'll kind of come in if I need to on some things, but the state highways are, of course, maintained, and whatever maintenance or whatever policies or laws that are policies that are in support of the laws that we have, I'll let them kind of answer those things. I've got some things I can leave with you as well that y'all can have and distribute. We don't have a formal presentation. We're just going to let y'all hit us with some questions and do our best to answer your questions. So I think the first question you had is about the use of state highway as far as trucks go. So I'll let Brock kind of lead it off, and I'll let these two just bat it back and forth. That's all right with y'all.
Morning, everyone. Brock Tyson, Traffic Operations, District 2 Tenal. Mary Perriman, your question about trucks, still coming through town, as long as it's designated as a state route, GDOT doesn't have a way to prohibit trucks from using the roadway.
Yeah, I say highways for regional traffic and for the economy and commerce for the state.
Mhm.
And so they have every right to be on those routes. And excuse me. Unfortunately, sometimes cities have grown up around the state routes. When the state routes were established, it wasn't a whole bunch of traffic that was associated with them, and the cities tend to grow up around them, but it doesn't relieve the purpose of the route, and so we just can't prohibit those trucks from coming through town.
And sometimes our citizens would say, well, we got the bypass, why can't they use the bypass? And we try to tell them maybe the GPA probably brings them through town, it's just whatever, I guess.
Yes, sir. On some occasions, we've made efforts to try to sign to try to help direct truck traffic to the bypass. But I can tell you, GPS it's a beast, and they're going to send them the quickest and shortest route, and sometimes that's going to be through your town. So.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
question. I understand the GPS. I use Waze a lot myself. Typically, it tries to use 4-lane bypass in lieu of going through town. This is just a personal thing. I've seen trucks go straight through town on 441 when they could have taken the bypass. That's an option. They should know that. They should be able to see that. We can't stop it, and I understand it, but I think that when you see a truck just go straight through town that's going to Athens instead of taking the bypass, that's frustrating. And I know we can't do anything about it, but, and I hear you.
One comment, and I don't want to jump in too much, but just one comment to say that trucks are using the downtown. Without counting and without knowing, I would say that many more trucks are using the bypass now. Had the bypass not been built and not be available, traffic would be to a measure that would be a lot different now. We all know that. So we recently did a count on North Main Street, and I was a bit surprised that there was a few trucks in a 7-day period as there were, and this is in an area where there's an outlet to an industrial area. So I think we could do better by offering good information. I know you guys do counts. I don't know if you classify traffic or classes of traffic on your state routes. You do from vehicles, passenger vehicles to big trucks but our equipment will do that as well. So I think we can help by doing more counts and offering good information, because I think when people say they don't use the bypass, that's not true. Many trucks use the bypass.
I agree, David. The city of Madison would look much different without the bypass. I'm trying to write down some of the things and some of the comments here so I can provide y'all maybe something back in writing, kind of what we talked about, and leave you with something, some links or whatever. But GDOT's got a plethora of information on their website, public information. One of the things that you can access are truck counts or just counts in general. And most of the counters break down that traffic count by type of vehicle. So you'll know how many trucks are coming. It gives it by percentage, of course. And then you really can break it down to the point of knowing the different types of trucks. And I have no idea how those computer sensors work to figure all that out. Somebody a lot smarter than me figured that out. But very useful information.
Could you clarify for us the street trees that are along 441 North and South Main Street? Are they city trees or are they GDOT right-of-way trees? Who actually owns and has responsibility for those trees?
We would love the city of Madison to say they want to own every one of them. And we can gladly sign over a mowing and maintenance contract with you to let y'all do that. It would still be within partnership. So that's something I'm glad you brought up. Now, I'm kind of stealing the mic and I told these guys I wouldn't. But, so we recently, I can't remember the addresses, and we're seeing this throughout all of our old historic towns. Got a lot of trees that are getting to the end of their life. And that's a difficult thing when you've got to go and knock on somebody's door and say, I know that you feel this tree's yours, but this tree is actually on DOT right away and it's posing a threat. So we're having to take those trees down. There are some cases where we do have some agreements, especially in, I'm going to say downtown proper, right here at the square, where we've done partnered with the city through transportation enhancement grants, TE type stuff, and those, anything planted during that time would have an agreement that the city's responsible for the maintenance. But the majority of what you see out here it has been here since, well, before we had a Georgia Department of Transportation. So there's no agreements in that. So if it's on the right of way, GDOT would own that. That said, there are a lot of things being planted between the sidewalk and the curb, new stuff, trees that are less than 10 years old, and even smaller things that are not going to be able to be trimmed properly, such as crepe myrtles that are blocking the view of signs and pedestrians and vehicles. That is very difficult for the state to be able to monitor and police. We work out a partnership. I'd love to do something, but especially when I went to the north side of town this morning, it's like a tunnel, and that tunnel is going to get a lot more difficult to manage as that growth matures.
I just had one more question. Are you gentlemen in a position to update us on the other bypass plans? I think I saw something about a completion date of a scary 2031. I know things work kind of a glacial pace with government, and do you have any new information for us on the west side bypass for Madison?
For the 83 bypass, I think is what we're talking about. I don't have it with me right now. I didn't bring that with me, but I'll make sure I note that and provide y'all some information. Again, and one thing I'll make sure I do is that information is publicly available, and there's websites you can go to that will give you that information. But I think 31, just so that you can understand this, GDOT is well over programmed, so when we start putting projects out for a date that's out in 31, 35, we're basically saying we acknowledge that we have a project program, but we don't have the funding for it, so we just put it, assign a date. So my best answer for you is to say that there's no immediate plans due to funding.
You know, when I drive 316 from Athens going west, I can't believe there's any manpower or money or anything left from GDOT, because there's so much work going on in those places. So I can understand your problem spreading out over the entire state of Georgia. So thanks for that information.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to kind of echo what David said. When I first moved to Madison in '81, I was here at the plywood plant that's east of town here, and at that time we had 200 tree length logging trucks delivering through Madison a day. So we've definitely made progress. A lot of people don't remember that. I mean, you'd have them backed up from the light all the way down to the bypass sometimes. And those were dangerous trucks. I mean, I admit that. But it is much better. And we just gotta keep educating folks, and hopefully if we can get that bypass on the other side, I think it will really help the situation. Because a lot of our trucks coming through town are coming from Monroe and coming in and making a right-hand turn, so.
And just to speak a little more on the truck traffic you mentioned earlier, I did a quick search on our application here. Right here south of downtown, it looks like there's about 6% trucks. And then north of town, we've got about 8%. And the bypass is showing about 16% trucks. Approximately.
So 16% on account of 10,600 versus a 6% count of about 15,000 vehicles a day. So what you have a difficult time also doing is determining how many of those trucks came downtown for delivery versus how many just went straight through. That data, I don't have the best of ways of telling you that other than a physical count or a camera or something of that nature.
And I can tell you from an operations standpoint, you're probably right. If the bypass come in, we won't have to be making that right turn, which is what's problematic. Even though you don't want the truck downtown, when that truck doesn't have to turn, it's a much better operation. It just passes through, and you ain't worrying about pedestrians, maybe hitting parked cars, things of that nature. So, but if we get the bypass in and you got a means of getting to 83, then it should really some of that what you're talking about.
About the right-hand turn up from 83 coming back south, is something as simple and something as effective as moving the stop bar back, 30 feet. When that street was resurfaced, I made a call. I'm not saying it was my idea, I'm just saying that I thought that just watching it over the years, if cars stay behind that stop bar, those trucks, it makes all the difference in the world. And they don't always do that, but something that simple. I appreciate the comment about parked cars, because we know that sometimes taking parking spaces out sometimes will help movements and build more space, but we feel like a balance is needed and most effective. And just wanted to thank GDOT for the new traffic signals downtown. They seem to be working better. I know they're dialing those things in for conditions. We see I think there's a camera there at the intersection, so they can, I think that's a camera there at each intersection that they can monitor traffic both visually and through the computers, and seems to be improving as we go. Got a few comments early on because it didn't seem to be working as effective as it could have, but seems to be better now, and thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, sir, sure.
Thank you. I seem to remember in some meetings in the past that when we get the west side bypass and then we have a complete bypass, then can we require that trucks use it unless they have a bill of lading to deliver, or am I mistaken in that? They can still utilize it if they
As
choose.
long as the state route is coming through town, there's
Yes,
no
sir.
way we can prevent
Okay.
the trucks from being there.
Thank you.
So how about speed limits? Some of them mentioned about they're speeding through town. What's your opinion on speed limits? And can the speed sign be moved further back, or there has to be a certain distance in the town?
We usually use the 85th percentile to determine and help establish speed limits. And I don't know that we've done any speed studies or anything like that. And I can't speak for David. I know David got a lot of equipment and stuff that he can do studies and things of that nature. But it requires a study. And with it being a state route, it is our responsibility. It falls in our jurisdiction to be able to, change or alter those speed limits. And we based it on 85th percentiles, and then we have to do what we call an ETI, which is an engineering and traffic investigation. That's a report to justify us changing the speeds and the limits of it. So we can't just go out there and just say, I want the speed limit to be 25 here, and then move the signs and all that. It's got to be some justifications in what we're doing and why we are altering those speed limits. And again, we try to base that on what the people are doing, because most people will do a reasonable speed, and it's based on the conditions of the roadway, what's out there. You know, is the lanes narrow? Are they wide? Do you have adequate shoulder? Is there parking there? Is it pedestrian there? Are you coming through a downtown area with signals and things of that nature? So drivers pick up on those cues, and they automatically adjust their speed based on that. And so we look at all of that to help us determine what those speed limits need to be. Now that's for the state route system. Local roads is y'all's responsibility. However, if you want a radar on those roads, it has to be on the ordinance and it has to be on the state order. And so with that being said, we don't help establish those speed limits, but we do pay attention to them to make sure that the way the policy put it, that it is reasonable, that the speed that you're putting there is reasonable. So we're not doing a study actually on y'all roads to set those speed limits, but if we come up with a road where it looks like a state route, I'll just say it to give this example. It's wide open, got good width lanes, good shoulders. You know, you expect 55 miles an hour on a road that's straight, no curves, things of that nature. Well, if the city comes to us with a road that looks like that and say they want it to be 25 miles an hour, then that's going to raise a flag to us based on the characteristics of the road. And so at that point, we're going to say, that's not reasonable, but if you think it is, then you need to get an engineer to do the study and justify that speed, okay? So that's how it works on the local roads. And we only get involved in that when you want to add that road to the radar permit.
Just to follow up on what some of you, what Kedrick said, and he's correct. So the ETI that he was talking about is specifically referenced in state law. So it's not a policy that Georgia DOT came up with that said, we're going to require that in the policy. That's the way we interpret the state law. That is specifically what the state law says. And I have our policy and the state law printed out. I'll leave that with you as well, Mayor Perryman. And just to highlight some of what he said, 85th percentiles is pointed out right here on the first page of the policy. He mentioned, I think he was talking about like side friction. What we consider side friction would be roadside development, any kind of, Waffle House, whatever is being built on the side of the road. He mentioned the roadway geometrics, site distances, clearances, width, stopping site distances, all those kind of things are things that are required to be brought out in that ETI. Other roadway issues, parking, pedestrians, and trucks. Then we have, driveway densities. How many driveways do we have coming into the road? Crash history, 5-year crash history. And then the last thing you talked about, that really what we kind of do on your roads is the test drive. We can do all those kind of things, but then what does it feel like? How does it feel to the seat of the pants? How does the driver feel in that situation? So a little bit of common sense along with all that engineering data.
Now, when you said 85, because I know what 85 percentile means to us as far as like on local streets where they might want traffic calming on a street, and we run our, was Metro counter, I don't know what we call it now, but when we do a speed study on that street, 15 percentile for us is that 15% is enforceable. In other words, 10 miles over the posted speed limit. Is that the same way DOT interprets that, or is it just raw numbers, everything over this posted speed limit?
We start with raw number,
Yeah,
the 85th of a sample, and then we work from there, so.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could? One question, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think we do realize that we really can't prohibit truck traffic coming down Main Street. I think we all understand that. But to encourage, we can certainly encourage, I think you mentioned maybe helping us with signage on the bypass to encourage truck routes. We're not prohibiting anyone coming down Main, but we can certainly encourage their use. Is that something that GDOT could help with and take a look at the two ends of our bypass and see whether we can improve truck usage on the bypass through signage?
It's something that we can definitely look at and see if there's an opportunity. Just with the understanding that whatever we put out there, we need the locals to understand that that does not say that trucks cannot be down south. We're just trying to encourage them to take a different path.
I'm not sure, but I want to say, I think we do have truck route signs out there now. I
Yeah,
believe
I'm
we
not
do.
sure. Are there?
I think the signs and other things get blind to, when you see them all the time, we don't notice them. I notice when a new
Call it
street
sign litter.
Well, they get lost in everything else, and we try to watch for that ourselves, but they're probably there. We've just gotten accustomed to them, and I think we've had some luck with just reaching out to some of the repeat trucks. We have Mr. Collins trucks that bring poles through from, and my office window was straight out on Main Street, and I used to see them all the time. I don't see them as much anymore. I don't know if they're still pulling those plugs through here, but just reaching out to a repeat, not saying, don't be mean, just say, could you encourage your truckers to use, or your drivers to use? There's nothing wrong with that, and we've had some pretty decent luck doing that. And the other is the Walmart Distribution Center in Monroe, because they feed up 83 too, and I don't see as much of that now. We probably need to count 83 coming in just to see how it compares now with what it was 3 or 4 years ago. And answering questions, nothing like, good data for the citizens.
Absolutely.
And not just what people think they see.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Reynolds and his team? Well, we thank you all so much for coming and sharing this information with us, and I hope that our council members have gotten a better insight as to why trucks can't stop from coming downtown, but as much as possibly can, you will encourage them. We can encourage them not to.
Yes.
Not to come downtown.
So, and I'll just leave with this part of it. So GDOT, the way we're structured, is that the governor has an appointee in GDOT, and that person is planning director, and that position is currently held by Ms. Janine Miller. And her background, if y'all go on LinkedIn or on GDOT's website, you will find that she has an extensive background in freight mobility. She spent quite some time in the private sector with Home Depot. She is probably the best freight mind I want to say we've had that's come into GDOT that hadn't grown up through GDOT for sure. So she's got some plans and she's working really hard. I don't want to speak, I don't have direct knowledge of everything they're working on. She's works with us a little bit. We collaborate on a monthly basis for sure on projects that we have regionally. But just know that that is a huge plan. If you haven't checked out GDOT's freight mobility information online, I highly encourage you to look at that. And if you have any questions after that, I'll definitely try to route those through Janine's team. But that is at the forefront of GDOT's mind is moving that freight most efficiently, and it's not efficient through your little towns. We all agree with that.
Can I ask one final, just can you update us a little bit on 441 South? We all see when the contract was let, they went to work, that morning, it seemed like, clearing and grading, they put in drainage. Can you remind us of the schedule and what we could expect on 441, and maybe a comment of 441 North, at least the part that's in this district?
Okay, so you caught me good there, David. I don't have the exact dates. I do know this on 441 South. That is a GDOT District 2, East Central Georgia. That's our region that we handle. ER Snell's got those projects. Those are what we call an A+B time component. So they gave us a price for the construction with a time to build. So that takes out or puts all the burden really on the contractor. They've told us when they can complete it. So when we do those projects, usually we see them ahead of schedule, and they are indeed ahead of schedule. I know that. I can't remember the exact completion date, but the good news is they're ahead of schedule. And great that you took notice in that, because that's the reason you saw that type of movement is because, I mean, that's not just a competitive price, but it's a competitive time that they put on that. And the way we structure our contracts is that regardless of your time, the money for that is the same, so you don't make additional or lose money for that time component, but you definitely can be awarded the project because of the time component. So, yes, I think that we will see those projects remain on schedule. North of here is a District 1 project.
Okay.
And if y'all been reading the papers like I have, they have got a ton of challenges ahead of them. I think
One of them be Bishop, Georgia.
Bishop remains
Glad
in the
it ain't
news. They remain in the news. So I don't know how they're going to complete all that. Kelvin Mullins is our district engineer there, and they are.
Now, they won't do Madison North to the county line, that's still you, isn't it? Or will they pick that section up?
I think their district is going to handle all of the construction.
Even though it's in this district, they're gonna do everything north of Madison? Okay.
Yes, most of it just barely, I say barely, a little bit of it's in, most of the work is in District 1.
Yeah, okay.
So they'll handle those projects.
Mr. Cooper, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
Yes.
may I ask your names individually really quick?
Kedrick Collins.
Corbett Reynolds, with the E, Corbett.
Brock Tyson.
Thank you.
This is our municipal clerk asking you these questions. Thanks very much for coming, John.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
So we're down to 3 ordinances in Southport. Planning Director Monica Callahan. Monica?
Thank you, Phil. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'd also like to take a moment and introduce you to our newest green space participant. Y'all appointed Mr. Phil Schmelzer, but I don't know that you've met him in person, so this is your opportunity to meet Phil and give him a high quiz if you'd like. Phil, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself?
Hi, Phil Smeltzer, as Monica said, actually moved to Madison almost to the day a year ago. I have some background in forestry, but my primary competency, well, I hope it's my competency, is public health. That's my background, primarily with obesity and walkability of trails and urban environment for encouraging physical activity. So it has some applicability, particularly to the trails.
So the Green Space Board is very fortunate to have Phil. I'm sorry, my mask is double lined, so you can't quite hear me this morning. So Phil is new to the board, and he has taken on some of the roles while David Land is in Florida taking care of Shandon. And one of those is to shepherd the tree ordinance through final review. I'm just going to briefly remind you that this is the ordinance that you reviewed, thanks to COVID, 2 years ago. Last November, this time, we went through the full ordinance. We talked about all the different pieces of it, the things you had concerns about, the things you wanted edited. All of those things were done. It was vetted by legal. And then today, what you have in front of you and what you asked for before adopting it was you wanted to see about the applicability of the new tree standard. Remember that the rewrite was for consumability. The average citizen didn't know what a caliper was, didn't know, the very complicated former tree ordinance that we are currently not administering very well was not user-friendly. The intent was this to be a little bit more user-friendly. So the ordinance was rewritten heavily for that impact. And then what the council wanted to see was modeled examples of what that meant to an existing residence and the trees. So I hope that you enjoyed your visual that's in your packets that was provided by Mr. Ben Prue, also a new Green Space Commissioner. It's almost like we needed those two folks on the Green Space Board to put the final version together. So today on your screen up above, you have at least 6 examples modeling different size lots throughout the community. And this is a visual interpretation of the ordinance that you have already seen. And this is to show that what the Green Space Board communicated, and Phil can chime in if I don't summarize this correctly, but after a review of these examples and a re-review of the ordinance, especially from Rick Crown's perspective, he's our planting chairman, there are actually he said there is no property that doesn't currently comply or that would have an onerous compliance to retain at least this many trees on their lot. And so we've had several properties in town recently, even on South Main Street, where you've seen trees being taken down, full yards being cleared and regrassed. They still meet the tree ordinance because that is how minimal the requirements for both overstory and understory trees on the lot are. So I'm going to shut up and see if Phil wants to add anything specific either to the ordinance or to lot coverage. And Ben Prue provided great photographic examples as well as a visual layout.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Monica said, Ben went through and did the site studies, did the photo studies, started in the historic district, and then moved out to some other neighborhoods throughout the boundaries, and was, could not find any properties that would not meet the standards. So it's, and just observationally or subjectively, it's a heavily treed area. We're blessed with that, and the ordinance would not be burdensome, it appears from the study.
And again, I think that what the Green Space Board is recommending, what they recommended 2 years ago, is that the ordinance in its new form be adopted as is. And then if there are reoccurring minor tweaks that we go back and revisit it, anytime we do a full overhaul, there's probably going to be small little things that need readjusting. But again, there have been no substantive changes from the version you reviewed November 2 years ago. We didn't want to touch the ordinance. Phil's even made some other suggestions that we may look at in the future. But for right now, this is the ordinance as you reviewed it and discussed it before, and as legal has seen it. We didn't want to tamper with that. It really was just making sure that it wasn't going to be onerous and that it was feasible to follow the new standard for all of our properties. So this is something that we hear a lot from newcomers. They'll call and say, do I need a tree cutting permit? And the answer before was, no, you didn't. The answer now is, you will if it takes you below the minimum that's in the ordinance. And so that is something that's, we get those expected phone calls from people who've moved here from other places. And then locally, some of our older folks probably have not lived in a community where they've had a tree retention ordinance. And that's essentially what this is a tree retention ordinance. But anyway, that's your summary. If you have questions, I stand ready to answer those to the best of my ability.
Well, I think we're familiar with what is that's brought to us, I think, about a year and a half ago.
It's been a while.
I appreciate what you're doing, and Phil, we appreciate you working with our city as well. Are there more questions for Monica, Phil? If not,
Mr. Mayor, please, just one question. Monica, I understand if there's a tree that's there that is damaged and it has to come down and it will bring them under, is there any provision for us to work with them to replace that tree?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So we can help them so that it doesn't become an overburden, right?
Yes, sir. So, and I just revisit that discussion we had last time. So, in the instance where you have a tree that needs to be removed, or honestly, a tree you just want to remove, there are provisions for doing that. You just have to make sure that you're maintaining a minimum tree count. So it's not a full on prohibition on taking down trees. I mean, it doesn't have to be interfering with your sewer line or interfering with your shade over a window, or it's diseased to come down. It can just be, you don't want one in that spot. You can take it down provided that you maintain the minimum. And that's the case. And then if you want to take it and it moves you below the minimum, there's a replanting requirement.
And Mr. Mayor, just one thing, I know Phil, you and Ben kind of both agree that the very few, if any, existing properties would be affected by this. What can you tell us about the actual process to get the permits that residents would need? How onerous or how laborious is that bureaucratic process to get from wanting to do something with a tree to actually getting it removed or added, whatever?
So the ordinance as drafted does not require that somebody request permission to remove a tree. So they don't, if it's a new build, then it has to adhere to the minimum tree requirements. And that should be part of the permitting process for a new build. And the only time that, if there's a remodel or revisions to a structure and it's 50%, changes the footprint by 50%, then it has to meet, it's similar to a new build, it has to meet the requirements. I don't know if that answered your question.
It's folded into the building permitting process. So if they're not seeking a building permit, there's not a formal review process. If we were to see someone clearing a whole lot, it gives you the ability to go and intercede retroactively before all of the trees come down. But there's not a proactive requirement out of a homeowner who's not pulling a permit.
But I think that, as I recall, what little I recall of 2 years ago, I think that was one of the concerns, was are we creating another bureaucratic maze that people need to go through? So I'm glad to hear that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
That was part of the comments internally with the most recent review, and it's where we came back to, as Monica outlined, is where the ordinance is currently and kind of was, but making it more onerous, putting more teeth into it. Our opinion was from the commission that we would have been over-engineering a problem that wasn't there. That there aren't enough problems of people doing, removing all the developers, removing all the trees, people cutting all their trees down, lots that don't have enough trees. That doesn't appear to be a problem. From Ben's study, sort of validates that observation. So that could be something that maybe at the next revision, if that becomes an issue or things have changed, but at this time, it doesn't seem to. So, just part of the permitting process.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Monica. Is that a question we could get to put on our consent agenda for approval at our next council meeting? All right. Thank you so much. Okay, Monica, I believe you're on next for donation of land.
I think Ashley was giving me some graciousness so I could report what the Green Space Board's recommendation was, but this property is not owned by this person. So the Green Space Board has recommended to take the donation of a small parcel that is formerly owned by Ken, or it's currently owned by Ken Coker. So I'm going to let him come take the seat.
Thanks, Ed.
So this is, and I'm going to do a double line too, so. This is a piece of property that I own on Washington Street. We cut it off the back of a rental property that I owned and sold about a year ago, I guess. Honestly, we cut it off because nearby there have been some interest in creating flag lots, and even though she isn't one of the owners, Monica and I talked about it, and we wanted to discourage that happening on this piece of property, so we opted to cut it off from the property and offer it to the city as a donation. And it's along the President's Trail, yeah. So you can see the current in green is what the city owns and will be using for the President's Trail, and you can see that this is adjacent to it. So it's theirs for the taking if you want it.
Well, I mean, what did I give?
I guess that's worth, what, $300,000?
That's right.
It's a donation? Do I need to sign off
Well,
on that?
I might be rethinking this now.
So do we need to accept a motion to put on our consent agenda to accept this gift from Ken? Get a nod, go on our consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ken.
This is the consent agenda for November 8th, correct?
Yes.
What now?
The consent agenda for November 8th. I
Yeah.
think that-
Yes.
Consent agenda, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you.
Monica again, you're popular today.
She's popular.
That's okay, I just didn't want Ken screaming at me because I was trying to give his property away. Good morning. Today's topic is the award grant for the Boys and Girls Club. We've received the package. I don't need to reiterate lots about it. This is a $750,000 grant received where the city is the fiscal agent and the Boys and Girls Club is the beneficiary of those funds. We have received the awards packet, and that's your brief summary. I asked the mayor earlier, if y'all wouldn't mind, I'd love this to be added to your called meeting immediately after this meeting, mainly because the state and our grant administrator has requested that as soon as we can return the packet, it facilitates the process of Madison getting ahead of everybody else that's in the CDBG line, and they would like it back as soon as possible. So if it wouldn't give you heartburn, the grant writer would like to ask you to add it to your called agenda today and go ahead and authorize the mayor. That would be the motion. Authorize the mayor to sign all related CDBG materials related to the acceptance of the $750,000 grant for the 2021 CDBG. And I'm happy to answer any questions either now or if you add it to the called meeting.
Well, I want to give for the Boys and Girls Club, really, yeah, thank you.
It's exciting, and I
Well, so
want to
hard.
reemphasize that the Boys and Girls Club are putting in another 700 themselves. It's a $1.5 million
Yes.
project.
It is. It's amazing.
So we could get a nod to put it on our
Call meeting.
call meeting following this? Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank you.
Monica.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Finance officer report, Karen?
Okay, so I have,
Talking to the mic.
I was.
But closer. It's hard to, you have a sweet voice. I can't hear.
I have provided a first quarter financial report for fiscal year 2022 and comparing revenue and expenses to the current budget. And first, I'll just wanted to highlight a few things. General funds revenue does seem a little bit low for the first quarter, but that's because our property tax revenue does not start coming in until second and into third quarter. So next quarter, it'll look different. I've also passed out a sales tax report, and sales tax is up about 20%, and so it continues to trend upward. Overall expenditures throughout all the funds are on budget or below for the first quarter. And I wanted to point out the hotel motel tax revenue. It is up from last year at this time and above the current budget as well at 48%.
Quick question on that. Are we, there's a floor that we pay to the Welcome Center or CVB for their services. Are we at the floor, or are we getting back above that, or did we dip below it last year?
We did not. It's not, it hasn't gone down to the floor. I think the floor is 88,500 for the
Right.
year.
Right.
And it has not reached that point.
Okay.
But we are given still 50% of last year's revenue to them.
Yeah, their budget year is based on last year's revenue.
Right.
So, okay.
So if you flip over to the second page of the summary, you'll also see that SPLOST and T-SPLOST funds are up because of the sales tax being up as well. Water and sewer revenues seem to be on track. Expenditures are still below budget, and as well as sanitation, but gas still seems a little low, but it'll start picking up in the winter months. It's a seasonal utility. So the winter is when we receive most of the revenue. Behind the summary, you'll have a detail of all the different funds that provide you a little bit more information for each line in the budget. And so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Just a comment about gas rates. Our rates are set every month based on the price of what we pay for natural gas. And then there's a margin, a set margin, not a percentage margin, but a set margin above that. That's a fixed amount. As have you seen, natural gas prices are up significantly over the past year or so due to a lot of different forces. Supply, demand for natural is up. But we're getting into the winter months, and we have a winter hedge in play that will help us. I don't know how much yet, but the cost of heating or cost of natural gas this year is going to be up everywhere. So just want to get that word out. We will, as we always have, if there are some sticker shock on bills, on residential bills, we will work with anyone that will, need to spread things out a month or two. We'll do that, penalty-free usually. So we don't know that we'll get into that, but gas is going to be, per MCF, going to be, could be as much as, instead of paying $8 an MCF, it could be, 10 or 11 or 12. We don't know yet what it's going to be. So maybe 40% more than recent past, which gas has been very cheap relatively for the past several years because we've gotten a little bit spoiled.
And I also wanted to add to that too, we do offer budget billing for natural gas customers. And so the sign-up period is in the summer in July. And so I know it might not help this year, but going forward, if anybody is interested, just contact us at City Hall.
Well, we're fortunate that our city can offer this service, and I think we all see on the news that natural gas is going up. So
Yes.
at least we have a heads up.
And related to that, Mr. Mayor, in talking with Karen and David, I don't believe we've really looked closely at our water and sewer pricing structure in a lot of years. And as much as we all hate to talk about raising rates, that's probably a discussion maybe next year we need to have. Is it time to do a study, take a look at those rates as well?
Yes.
I think so.
I appreciate that comment because
Yes.
we've been at, the last time the city raised water and sewer rates was at the end of a structured increase in rates based on a bond issue, and that's been well over 10 years ago.
That was in 2000, we stopped raising rates in 2010.
Okay.
Yes,
So
2010.
we're over time for a
About
little
10.
bump, and I think an engineering study or a cost study, and it would be, I think it's the way the city has done many things forward-looking to make a decision to keep rates, relevant going forward, and where if your costs are always increasing, then your revenue should be matching that to a small degree, and different ways to get at that. And Councilmember Joyce, I appreciate your comment. That is something we're sorely in need of doing. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
just
sure.
one quick point. It's really exciting to see this sales tax, but not really to me going up because it's not, I don't think that people are buying it anymore. I think what they're buying costs a lot more. And so we're going to see, it's going to get to a point where people just can't buy. So I'd like to see prices come down and see buying go up in total volume rather than what we're seeing here right now. So this is going to be even more of a hardship on our citizens, just daily life, and also on our employees in the city. I mean, we need to be kind of keep an eye on what's happening there because.
And we know that they can't get drivers to drive trucks. It's affected all of us.
Yes.
So.
And I'll point out the TABT revenue you'll see that it's dramatically increased as well this year, and that is because they changed in July the distribution of the TABT money, making it to where local cities get more of the pie piece than the county and state. So they've changed that distribution. And I've also, I know that this isn't to do with numbers per se, but I have received, or the city's received, a draft of the personnel policy, and we're currently reviewing it and also scheduling a meeting with Dan Laster with the Carl Vincent Institute of Government that is redoing the personnel policy for us, and we're continuing to work at it and so we can bring something to y'all.
Karen, when do you normally start working on the budget?
I start handing out reports to supervisors and requesting their department's expenditures back in February.
Mm-hmm.
So usually around after the first of the year, January, February.
Okay. And what I like to ask my council members to do, probably once you get to a place where you want the council members to come in and ask questions, if we could get our council members maybe to go in, a couple of council members at a time, you know, to alleviate a lot of time from you, if our council members can do that, you know, maybe
Okay.
Karen, Eric, maybe Rick and Ed and Chris and I, you know, it'll alleviate a lot of time, and hopefully we can get instructions so when the time comes to approve the budget, everybody's on the same page. And won't have to waste a lot of time in our council meetings. You know, are you up for that? Would that be good for you? Not now, but you know. When we get to
Right,
that
and
point.
that's fine, and I've always encouraged any type of ideas or items that you would like to see in the budget, so we can see how it fits in and where. So,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thanks. Are there any questions,
Thank
Karen?
you.
Thanks for a great report, Karen.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Joyce?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to talk briefly about where we are with our COVID safety protocols, and my main interest is to kind of maybe come up with some sort of a general assurance to our retailers that the cancellations we've had this past month are kind of done, at least for the time being. I'm getting a lot of feedback from that, but we do have events coming up. The downtown with Karen Robertson is supporting the Sip and Stroll, I think it's called, every Saturday in November, starting November 6th. I think we still have scheduled the Tot Lot opening on the 13th. I got a nod over there. That's another outdoor public event. And then, of course, we've got the Christmas parade, I think, on December 11th, I believe. And I assume that includes our usual hot chocolate and marshmallows in the park. So anyway, I don't think we need to make a formal statement, but I just kind of wanted to kind of discuss, are we at this point done with cancellations? Can we assure our merchants that we are finished? And then the other part of it is the mask requirement. I sit in on a number of commission meetings in this very room. This group is the only one that wears masks consistently, the only one. Our guest today, I mean, is there a benefit to continue to require masks in our city buildings, at our meetings, at commission meetings, at City Hall for employees? I don't really know. I know the website says something about it, the incidence of COVID in the area. I don't know if the numbers seem to come from the county, but we only respond to what's in the city, so I'm a little confused on that. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
Eric, I thought about it too, and I tell you, we look at ball games and nobody have a mask on. Go to certain benefits, nobody have a mask on. So I think maybe we need to get to a point, let people do it at their own discretion, you know. All our council members came in the morning with the mask on. Did you feel safe? If you don't feel safe, wear your mask. But I feel comfortable without a mask now. I mean, and if people come into our council room, I think we can encourage them to wear a mask. But if they don't, that'd be entirely up to them. I don't know how staff feel, but someone coming into the planning department, how the city manager feel with people coming into City Hall to pay their bills, you know. But
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
But I think we're at a point where let people use their own discretion, you know.
I agree.
Mr. Manager.
Could we, at the call meeting, we add that and just pull back on that, that edict? And make it clear Ken can then change all of our online information about where the city's position is now on that. Still encouraging people to do smart things, wear a mask when you don't feel comfortable in your environment. Certainly if you're not vaccinated, we would highly encourage people to wear a mask because you have no protection whatsoever. And we could change that. And we've had good compliance with that at City Hall. The planning department may have had a similar, have similar experience with it. So no real pushback.
Is everyone comfortable with kind of loosening?
If we could do that at the call meeting, then we could you could make an
Make a
official
formal
action
statement.
and
Yes.
pull back a little bit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll add that to our call meeting following this work session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Member Latham?
Yep, I'm not going to take long on this one. I mentioned it to you, Mr. Mayor, that at our last regular meeting, we turned down a conditional use for double wides within the city, within an area. I think we need to review, I would like for us to start looking at that. Is that going to be, because that kind of sets a precedent, because that's all conditional use in several areas, and we've turned down one already. So my question is, from a standpoint, do we become consistent and say no conditional use? But we need to evaluate that and just take a look at it. So I would like to have the rest of the council members take a look at it and see if we can discuss that and come up with a policy that we can move forward with.
Would you be comfortable, Mr. Councilmember Latham, if we put this on our work session for January, give our council some time, put some thought into it?
Yeah, I'm not even talking about this year. I'm talking about as we go forward. Because I know that we've approved some at one time, then we disapproved some at one time. And I think I'm looking at it from a legal standpoint as well, that if we approve another one, anywhere it is, I think we might end up, and where I sit right now, I'd have to vote no for it, even though I voted yes on this other one, because I go along with the city council's decision. I'm not going to go against it. So we turned it down, so the next one comes up, I can guarantee you, I'm going to vote no.
But Ed, the whole idea of the conditional use permit or hearing is to make it specific to one property. It's not really, it's not across the board. I believe the manufactured homes aren't allowed in most, as I said at our last meeting, there's only 2 zoning areas that allow it. But the conditional use process itself is specific to one particular property. So because we turned that one down, maybe because it's on Vine Street, doesn't mean that behind it, we would necessarily turn down the next one. Do you get my point, or?
I get your point, but I'm also want you to get my point. I will vote no, okay? Because we voted to turn that one down, and it was on Vine Street, and it was right next door to a double wide. So I disagreed with that decision, but I will support that decision in the future, and if it comes up, I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
That's exactly why I turned it down on Vine Street, because we turned the ones down on Eliza Morris. I don't know exactly how many years ago, Ed, maybe 8. I think I was just coming on council. And Mr. Benford, to be exact, wanted to put 2 double wides, one on Eliza Morris and one facing Pearl Street. And that was a really big blowout. And we decided that we didn't want double wides in underprivileged areas. So that's exactly why I turned it down on Vine Street, because that area is an underprivileged area. So I want to be even across the board. So I definitely agree with what you were saying. Maybe we do need to go back and kind of look at the ordinance and look at different things. And I am ready for that in January.
And I think what happened, Councilman Reed,
Okay.
We're trying to get them out of the neighborhood.
Yes.
And to a mobile home.
Yes.
Mobile park. And-
Yes.
And my question was, because I didn't have a vote.
Mr. Mayor, will you speak into your mic, please, so that those online?
And my question was, someone asked if they could build a stick home. I think, you know, what this guy was gonna put this double wide mobile home. And that stick home was gonna probably cost twice as much as that double wide mobile home was. And my question was, the gentleman that was here, I don't think he was against putting a double wide there. He actually wanted to buy that property for himself to keep this double wide being so close to him. And we all might have missed the point, you know. But he really was not against the double
He
wide.
didn't want anything there.
He didn't want anything there,
Right.
you know, and we talk about affordable homes. And I think the guy who was gonna put it, that's it, gonna be what, $750 a month to rent? A stick home is gonna probably be $1,000, $1,200, you know, so. But it's a good question that Councilmember Lathan is bringing up, and we can certainly have a great discussion about it in the
Yes.
future. Monica, I'm sorry.
I was just going to briefly say, without retrying any application, either past or present, is that the difference, and I think Eric's point's well made, and I think I know where Ed's going, because we've talked about this a little bit. So what staff is looking for when you make a policy shift, if there is a tendency out of decision-making to shift toward a policy change, then you can telegraph that underlying policy change to the public a little bit more honestly, that you're going to say no every time, and that we should have our ordinance reflect that. So that is what I heard out of Councilmember Ed. He said that, you know, if I feel like I'm going to say no every time, then I want to go ahead and change it to a no in the ordinance. When it has a C in the ordinance, Eric is correct. It means maybe. It means maybe, and it's site situational, and you're setting no legal precedent by swinging yes, no, yes, no, yes, no every time. You've set no legal precedent, and our attorney continues to reinforce that, but we don't always hear that. But if you're consistently saying no every time the conditional use hearing comes up, and you're ready for a policy shift for it to say no in the ordinance, to go ahead and fully telegraph that to the public, then staff stands ready to make that policy shift if that's where you're headed. So I think always with things to zoning, we're looking for if there's a trend in your decision-making. If you've ready to shift to a full yes or a full no, or you want us to reevaluate the zones, we just want to be told, okay, it's time to go look at that. Just like, you know, with the nodal zoning thing, y'all said, go look at that. So we're not looking to instigate it ourselves. We're looking for you to say, okay, we've seen our decisions over the last 8 years are trending no. Then we're ready for a policy shift. So if you're ready for that, we'll be happy to look at it. But please don't worry that your conditional uses are setting legal precedent. They're not. And if you need Jimmy to reiterate that, he can.
To give you an example, that on Maple Street, there's a bunch of these really small, close-together trailers.
Yeah.
One of them was burned out a couple of years ago, I think, and it's vacant. If they were to come to me and on the council right now and ask for a conditional use permit to put in a new trailer in that spot where it's surrounded, like, literally by a bunch of others, that's a different situation in my mind than what we talked about at our last meeting. And that very well might get my vote to approve that one. It's a different situation completely. Site-specific is how I look at it.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'll make one response back. We need to move on because we've got a lot of things to do. In my looking at that situation, the double wide going in was better than all those single wides that were within a rock throw away from there. It was an upgrade improvement for affordable housing. And this is where I'm coming from. I'm not just saying we got to do away with that. I'm saying I want us to look at where we're going to move and how we can provide affordable housing, work with people to get affordable housing. There may be some programs that we can do. Monica and I have had conversations from the DDA, different things that we might be able to do. And we need to start thinking aggressively because I would really like to have people have either a modular home, which I consider to be as good a quality of being built as a stick built, and usually better because it's done in a jig. And I lived in one when I first moved to Madison, by the way. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm not trying to be vindictive. We got to get out of a box, and we got to start thinking. There's, I don't know how many billions, supposedly in this budget reconciliation project of the federal government, they're talking about $150 billion nationwide for affordable housing. So now's the time to start thinking about it. If it does come up, we want to figure out what to do. So that's all I had to say.
And that's a good conversation to have with our GIG team
Yes.
group, you know.
The GIG team has been talking about
I was
affordable
gonna-
housing for 8 years.
Yes.
And maybe what we need to do is have at least a member to come and give you the array of policies that already are supportive of that, and maybe the ones that are still working against it. Because just because y'all are not aware of it doesn't mean the GIC team has not studied that issue. And maybe
Yeah.
they need to do a better job of relaying that information to you. Anyway, so that's just a thought.
Okay.
If you want that, we'll be happy to provide it.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, this meeting, this work session is adjourned. I know some of my councilmen has got to get out of here at 10, but I hope you can stay long enough for 10 minutes.
I got 20 minutes.
Get there. Okay. We have a good 2 hours. We don't have to
Turn
worry
off
about
my
opening
mic.
up.
My wife's got me on the timetable. I got 7.5 minutes, so let's move it.
I got about 20.
Okay, we need to add the Boys and Girls Club package to our agenda. We get a motion to add that to our agenda, to our,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor? Poses? None?
We need to also add.
A COVID protocol. Thank you,
So
sir.
moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, all right. Carl Benson Institute of Government Organization Study Award modification. Did y'all see the attachment that she sent? And she's going to interview employees, some employees with the city, and we just need to approve that. So David can move forward with that. Can we get a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
That more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. Vote unanimously. Thank you. Terms and conditions of law enforcement and first responder supplement contract program launch. This is with the DHS and DFACS, low-income household or something else. Okay. This was handed down from the governor, I believe, to give our first responders, I think our law enforcement and our fire department, full-time fire department, and part-time volunteer department. Is that right, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think $1,000. And this money will be handed down, I guess, by the governor. So how will that money be spent? I understand some of the employees are already asking about it, and
Amen to that, brother.
It is. These terms and conditions, very similar to the ones y'all have already seen in the past for American Recovery Funds.
I can't hear you.
And so, yes, once these funds are applied for, they'll come down, and we will run this $1,000 to each law enforcement and fire personnel through our payroll software, and that is required to do.
Just a clarification, it is $1,000 for each public safety, full-time public safety official. That'd be 2 firemen, all our police officers, but $300 for our volunteer firemen.
which
Yes.
is really good.
It's
Really, really good. Might as well.
Now, but the volunteer firemen, they are not on payroll, so this will run through as a regular contract or accounts payable software to them, and that's how we currently pay them their stipend. anyway.
So once this is approved, Karen, the city pays this, and then we're reimbursed by the state or by the federal government?
No, sir, I will go onto the grant portal and apply for these funds, and then once they are received, the next payroll they will be dispersed.
Once the bird is in hand.
Correct.
Good plan.
We're trying to get the bird to get here before Santa Claus even threatens to get here.
Yes.
Thanks, Karen. We can get a motion from my council to approve this.
I so move.
Go ahead, Ed.
No, you go ahead. It's your turn.
So, motion by Councilmember Joyce, seconded by
Carrie.
Councilmember Reed. All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. This contract will be signed by you, Karen, or by the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, it's something we
From
all
you.
really, really approve of, so it just,
Eric, Carrie.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to do the
Yes, please.
contract with Department of Human Services? We're currently already in a contract with the Department of Human Services for heating assistance. So people with natural gas to heat their home, they can apply for assistance, and we receive funds from them to apply to customers' accounts. This is very similar, but it is for water service. So this just reaches a broader customer base for us, basically almost everybody that's residential. So they can go and apply through them, and they will funnel the funds down to us and to be able to use for any type of disconnected or past due utility account for water service. So this is just another type of assistance to our utility customers.
Did you say this program already exists in a different form now?
For heating assistance, yes, sir.
How many citizens do we have that avail themselves of the existing program?
It's probably, I would say, less than 25. It's not very many. No.
Less than 25?
Percent? Maybe?
No, not percent.
That's
customers.
just less
Number.
than,
The heating assistance is determined by eligibility.
Yes.
It's not just a,
There is an application process. I believe that it starts April 1st, and they have to meet certain requirements, and one being the range of being in low income.
I know it used to be how to, I know it did action at one time, was able to get a lot of low-income people to come.
They
in,
do,
and the
and
city
we
would
do
get some stipend, I think, from that to their bill or something, I think.
We do refer customers to action as well.
Yeah. So how will the citizens know? Will that be something in the water bill for them to, can we put something in the water bill to?
We can, and we'll have this up at the front counter. And they have, of course, their ways to put it out as well. And we'll use all avenues to get this information available to our customers.
Okay. Thank you. So do we need a motion? We need a motion to put this on our.
No, can,
We've approved it
Just
right
do it
now.
now, go ahead and approve it now. All in favor? I mean, motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the low-income household water assistance program.
I second that motion.
That about discussion. All in favor, show of hands. Eric, are you voting?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Opposed is none.
He raised his left hand, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Didn't
you.
raise his right hand.
thank you.
so the other acronym is LIHEAP. So what is this one? Is this LIWAP? I'm just, okay.
Just talking.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes.
If we could get an approval for the boys and girls, $750,000 grant, we could just talk about that in our work session. We get a motion?
I make a motion and authorize the mayor to sign the $750,000 grant for CDBG for the Boys and Girls Club.
Second.
That about discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Eric, are you voting? Opposed is none. Vote unanimously. Thank you. COVID-19, yes, sir.
As you move on to that, so Eric noted that there was something on the website that talked about if you have 100 cases per 100,000 that it was in effect. That's the one that goes to businesses that you'll recall you did, and
Yeah.
they could opt out by putting a sign saying, we don't want to do this. That one's still on the books. It didn't have a sunset. I think the whole idea of the 100 per 100,000 was meant to, once we stopped having to deal with COVID, it would disappear, but obviously that hasn't happened. So I would suggest if you're going to rescind your city facilities one, you might also want to look at rescinding that one, because that's where the confusion came from. There are actually two still in effect.
So let me ask you something while you're here. How do you think staff feel about people not wearing masks? when they
I
go to
I
the
would not want to
office?
speak for 70 people, sorry.
How do you feel? How would you feel? How do you feel?
I think probably in our office, knowing we work in a bullpen, and I know how my coworkers feel, that probably we would keep wearing a mask. I know that Monica's the one who has the most meetings, and she tends to bring them to this facility so that they're not impacting anyone in our office. So, you know, we'll deal with it, whichever way it goes.
I wish, Jimmy, are we on legal grounds to be able to make this change without it being on the agenda prior? It wasn't officially listed as a...
Public comment, are you taking public comment as you've heard from Mr. Coker?
It's not time. It's not time for public comment yet.
Well, you've heard from Mr. Coker. Can I say something about this?
If you would just hold for just a moment.
Point of order. You've added an item to the agenda without
Sorry,
any
you can't
showing
call
that it's
point of order.
necessary to do so.
Ma'am, if you would just hold your, if you would just hold
You
your,
have an agenda on file for November 8th.
what did she
This should be
say?
noticed to the public.
What did she say?
This should be noted, this item should be noticed to the public.
Thank you, ma'am.
We're only to amend an agenda for items that are necessary at the moment. You don't even know what the background is, you haven't given any consideration and no opportunity for the public to speak. This should not be on a called meeting agenda immediately following a work session.
Thank you, ma'am,
It's
for your
in
comment.
violation of your own agenda ordinance.
I have no problem.
We are not taking comments right now, though.
Your meeting if you want. I don't know what the legalities of it are to be.
How do
It's
council
a point of order.
Ma'am,
We're not taking public comments right now.
No, she can't call a point of
Right.
order. That's the issue.
Comment,
Only one
it's
that
a
can
point
call
of
a
order under law.
Yeah, members of this body can call point of order, not public.
yeah, just turn around, but anyway. So you want to
You
put this
can
on
mute me
our,
all
on
you
our
want,
work
but it
session, on our council meeting for the 8th?
Yes.
Okay, we put it on our
I
council
mean,
meeting.
that's fine.
That's fine.
On our
Thank
council
you.
meeting.
We were just trying to get clearance for people
Right.
as quick as possible.
Right,
And if we have to do that, that's okay with me.
right. Put it on our council meeting for.
I totally agree. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, no problem at all. No problem at all. Mr. Manager, you want to give a quick report since, before we go into executive session? Quick report, I might not be prepared, but just give us an update.
I don't have a written report, Mr. Mayor, but we're moving ahead with different projects. The parking lot down at the West Washington Gateway is now under construction. You've seen that. They're gonna move ahead pretty quick. The grading will take a couple of weeks. That lot is gonna come up in grade quite a little bit based on adjustments made on the site. We're moving ahead slowly but surely. Some sidewalks on East Jefferson Street. We're just about to the housing, to Madison Avenue. That'll connect it all the way back around to Vine Street. We got some ideas about where to go. We want to pull back off of Vine for a while, maybe do some low-hanging fruit, perhaps Fifth Street back around to Hughes Circle. A lot of foot traffic there, tie it back into Jefferson. So be thinking about where you might want to move on sidewalks next. The downtown, we're going to put in the Hancock Street brick sidewalks there. We got our material in. Hopefully, we'll get to that next week. A lot of those businesses and residences are coming online now. So we'll be getting street lights and street furniture and trees and whatnot into that and really change the look of that block on Hancock Street. I'll take any questions you might have about anything.
East Jefferson Street looks so much better.
It does.
Yeah, that is
The
very
what?
exciting.
It looks so much better.
Lambert Park.
Oh, about the play? Yeah, Monica reminded me, Lambert Park continues to move in a good direction. We've got the play structure, the play area for the tots, which is a component of that. We had a very generous donation to move that project forward. And it's the equipment has been ordered and the install will be scheduled when that is all in. Looking for that within the next 3 to 4 weeks, is that right? Okay, so look for that to be done. that park is really, I mean, it looks like it's been there a long time
It
already.
does.
It really looks nice.
It really looks nice.
And it's utilized a lot, David.
Excuse me?
It is also utilized a
Utilized
lot.
quite a bit, okay. The crews are in, it takes about 2 weeks to put all the Christmas decorations, if you prefer holiday decorations, but Christmas nonetheless. We've added a lot to do Town Park around the fountain. You'll notice the arches out on the corridor makes that area feel like they're not left out. They're very important to the city as well. But it takes about 2 weeks to get all the decorations up, and the request was they go in early to be ready for a lot of the city functions, the shop, sip, and stroll. We're trying to get that holiday atmosphere, get everybody's pocketbooks limbered up. And just as a reminder, you won't, if you shop local and you actually pick up what you're going to buy, you won't have to worry about a shipping container at Long Beach or LA or Savannah. You'll actually walk out with it in a bag and you'll be done. So, think and shop locally, please. Support your neighbors in downtown. That's my commercial.
Thank you, sir. And I did attend downtown meeting on this past Monday, and Mr. Manager, probably with our Main Street Director too, a lot of people was asking questions about our Christmas and our Christmas decoration. I think it'll be a good conversation to have the first day of the year, with our Main Street Director.
Mr. Mayor, that was specifically about lights on the buildings.
Lights on the buildings and things. So when that time comes, she would know exactly what to do, prior to them asking her a lot of questions. This is her first year. She was just following pursuit, So at that time, she'd be her own person.
That's right. One more quick thing. We have a scheduled one-day movie shoot that is at Merchants Hall. It'll be the block from North 2nd Street or Academy Street down to Thomason Street will be blocked. The detour signs are all up now. Local traffic won't have any problems, but they'll have to turn trucks on that Wednesday at Sandy Creek and send them around. It was scheduled a month ago, back in early October, but the rain rained them out. Would rather have gotten it done before the holidays, but we're working with the businesses, or at least the movie is talking to the businesses, making sure it's as little impact as possible. But do know that on the Wednesday the 3rd, I think Wednesday's on the 3rd, there's a little movie shoot in town. It's a period piece, 1760s, the Battle of Bushy Run. I don't know too much else about it, but there'll be some activity there and on Academy Street. Just want to let you know about those kinds of activities. Any other questions or? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to just give a minute for someone to call in, since we are in a regular meeting?
Well, we can allow for opportunity for public comment if it's at that time.
Now's the time for public comments. I don't know who was that on the phone earlier.
Is there anybody on live stream?
There's one person. And there's one person on live stream and one person on GoToMeeting.
Give it about a minute. About 25 seconds.
25?
25 seconds.
That's it? Okay. If this meeting is adjourned, we can get a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel, please.
Mr. Mayor, can we make the motion before adjourning? And then when y'all come out, you'll adjourn the meeting?
We have to come back into,
Right.
we
Yeah.
we don't
We're not
adjourn.
adjourned yet.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll just come back and make a statement if we need to.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we leave the called meeting and enter into executive session.
Second.
Is that about discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposing, none. We'll go into executive session, discuss personnel. If anybody needs to rest themselves for a few minutes, please do.